Be the change you want to see. Make a difference by giving your money a purpose, a mission to do good. Welcome to Money with Mission, where we talk to individuals, businesses, and organizations who are taking the lead and whose actions are impacting the well-being of their communities and the world at large.
Thank you guys so much for coming on. I'm so excited to have you here. Like I said, I'm beyond excited to have the Hunger Project on my program. As we talked about, the Hunger Project's goal is to end hunger by 2030. We all just finished our goal seminar, and we know goals have to have a date. And that's been a goal for a long time for the Hunger Project organization. How long have you guys had that goal?
Since 1977.
That's the organization start, correct?
Right.
Yes.
Since the beginning.
Okay. That seemed like a long time away at that point, didn't it?
It did. One of the important things in those days was to stand for ending hunger,
Okay.
rather than alleviating suffering, and which is of course important, but the idea is that taking on ending something that seemed so huge, so tremendous, would call us to be bigger humans, bigger together, bigger individually than we'd ever been.
Bigger thinkers. If you think about ending something. I'm going to read the vision for the Hunger Project. The vision for the Hunger Project is a world where every woman, man, and child leads a healthy, fulfilling life of self-reliance and dignity. That's huge. That's huge, because it's not about just feeding people, correct? I mean, hunger, define hunger in the Hunger Project's terms. We'll start there. Either one of you.
Well, hunger, it's very important to understand, as you were perfectly mentioning, that hunger is a dimension of an integral and holistic life. We cannot just focus, ending hunger is not about food. It's about, unleashing the human spirit and unleashing, the women and the men and the child capacity to be self-reliant, to live a healthy life. So for us, the most important aspect of this is that they have the control of their future, of their lives, not like what is available or what is just the aspect of not just feeding people, but rather seen as a development. And we don't think they're the problem, but they're the solution, right? And so this approach really, it's a very holistic, and particularly, in a very humane aspect, because it focuses in the dignity of the person. And I think that's, to me, what has kept me for so many years working for the Hunger Project.
Focusing on the dignity of the person and not on just giving them food. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And okay. I don't know if Suzanne.
Yeah, so I'll add on, Felicia, that the piece about the Hunger Project, as Lorena said, works holistically, and so many of the issues of poverty are inextricably linked. So it's never been about feeding people, because that comes from a place, especially for us in the West, of I have and you don't, kind of a binary have not, better than, less than, you need help, I don't need help. It's coming from that perspective. So we've always come from standing in partnership, that each and every human being has dignity, has capacities, and that how can we stand shoulder to shoulder with them to help them look and see, create a vision for their lives. What would it be? What would our village be like? What would our community be like if everyone were well fed, if boys and girls went to school equally, if men and women treated each other with dignity and respect, if women had a voice in leadership? What would it be like in our village? So they create an extraordinary vision for something they've never seen before in their lifetime, or maybe lifetimes before, and then work together to create that. It's so that many of your listeners, Felicia, may not know that hunger is inextricably linked to this nexus of issues. So I know that Lorena and I, we're steeped in this, so maybe we speak about it in a way that is of course, but it's not of course for most people. That it's the issues that they're linked to are economic equality, health, education, social justice, the rights of women and girls, and climate change. So really, to make progress towards ending hunger, we have to address all of these areas to create sustainable change. And that's what the Hunger Project's about. If you, the way you read, I just get goosebumps every time I hear the vision of the Hunger Project, a world where every woman, man, and child leads a healthy and fulfilling life of dignity and self-reliance. You didn't even hear the word hunger in there anywhere.
No, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So that's the vision. That's the vision.
And that's what I really wanted that to be highlighted for people, because honestly, when I started investing with the Hunger Project, I thought it was about feeding people, which it is, but it's so much bigger than that. It's so much bigger than that. And understanding how hunger and poverty and gender equality and climate change and government and the way we respect and talk to each other and treat each other is all involved in that is huge. Once you, as you guys have shown, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, once you kind of get all those things, once you get all those things kind of wrapped up, hunger kind of takes care of itself. Feeding each other and being full and being nourished kind of takes care of itself. Now, there's 690 million people worldwide who are undernourished. 99% of those people are living in hunger are in low and middle income countries, and women and girls account for 60% of that. How do you guys decide where you're going to go and where you start your programs?
Well, so first of all, we go where the situation is toughest. And although we're not in areas that would be called fragile states, areas where there are wars and sort of war-torn area, to be able to do the kind of development work we do, we have to have a relative kind of a peace.
Okay.
Right? Because you can imagine people sitting in a village, envisioning their village free from hunger and boys and girls going to school. That's not really a capacity or a vision that can be done sort of in a war-torn area, right?
Mm-hmm,
so
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So and secondly, we go where we're invited in. So we want to be sure that we spend sometimes a long time, sometimes not, it doesn't take as long, but we can spend a long time getting permission and blessing of the folks who are in charge. And that could be local governments or national governments. And in the case of Africa, for example, many of the areas where we work are largely controlled by traditional chiefs.
Okay.
Chiefs and their families. And so they traditionally have said who owns land, who doesn't, what it gets used for, how it gets handed down. So in Africa, the case, we really want to be sure and enroll the chief of that particular geographic area to give blessing and actually even give land. They become the first investor, you could say.
Okay.
Giving some land to build the community, the epicenter community area on. And so that's one of the ways that we choose going in. These days, Felicia, though, really, there are so many organizations working on all these various aspects of hunger and poverty that the work of the Hunger Projects has shifted. Our mission, our sort of vision has shifted to be sure that all of the organizations, or a large number of the organizations around the world that are working in this way, work from the same methodology that the Hunger Project works from. And the name of that we have given it is now called community-led development.
Okay.
Right? So this has been the way the Hunger Project has worked for over 40 years. And other organizations have, over there several decades, the Heifer Project, for example, and some others, have discovered that unless you start with people and unless you start with women, the whole thing is doomed for failure.
Okay.
So now we're working on coalescing a group of these folks, saying, wherever you work, because the Hunger Project can't be everywhere, wherever you work, between us, we pretty much work all over the world. Let's be sure that we're all working from this women-centered and community-led approach.
Okay, so I have a couple questions out of that. I'll start with sounds like the Hunger Project is on two different levels. You're working with other organizations for the unity-led approach. Is that what you said? Is that
community-led approach, right?
Community-led approach. So you have people from the Hunger Project working with other organizations to help everybody understand this approach. And by your statistics and by your successes, you can say this is what's working compared to others. Okay, so you have that. And then you also have people within the Hunger Project in the areas that you are located, working directly with communities, working directly with community leaders, government leaders, to be invited into that area to work with the people, correct?
Yes, absolutely. It's was important in 2015 is when the Hunger Project and others launched the movement for community-led development.
Okay.
And and there's a website for it, and it's called the Movement for Community-Led Development. And at the same time, we recognized that it was important to continue with our own development work worldwide, because the decades of being in Africa, India, Bangladesh, Mexico, places like that really continue to show the evidence long after communities have achieved their own end of hunger and self-reliance. They're like the evidence base,
okay,
right, to continue on.
Yes.
And the other organizations have the same in their work. So in the movement for community-led development, the big push over the last couple of years has been to gather the evidence base from all these organizations. So, hey guys, let's not be competitive and, what do you call it, siloed about our approaches and have this like our proprietary ownership of our process so that we can raise, the most money in that sort of nonprofit competitive piece. Rather, how do we become collaborative and look at, I know, we know that this community-led approach that starts with women is the secret sauce.
Yeah.
So why does it have to be a secret sauce? Why can't it be like the thing?
The thing. Got it.
Right.
Got it. My next question is about why women-centered. But before we go to that, I'm going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Money with Mission is a real estate and business investment company that specializes in finding projects that have the potential to give you a great return on your investment dollar and make an impact in the communities where we invest. Make a difference in your life and the lives of others. Go to moneywithmission.com to learn more. Welcome back, everybody. The last question we had when we went to break was about why women-centered, and we're going to ask Lorena to talk a little bit about that for us. Lorena, by the way, is coming to us from Monterrey, Mexico. She is sitting at, I don't know, is your background real, or is it really beautiful there, like it looks like it is from
Monterrey City is beautiful, and this background is more beautiful than it is, and that's my home currently. But right now with COVID, everyone is working from home, so it's challenging, and so background protects a little bit of who's passing by.
Exactly.
And so, but going back to your question, why women-centered? One of the things that I want to take on this is following from the previous question, because as you were saying, ending hunger in the past was doomed to be like always. In the world will always exist hunger. And as Suzanne explained, the Hunger Project took on in 1977 to say, we can end this, and we were, a pioneer on that and making such a big statement and a stand. And so in order with this new commitment of ending hunger by 2030, we are in 2021 already. So we cannot continue to be doing more of the same, or the organizations keep playing a role where we just feed people, like the Hunger Project in those two dimensions that were mentioned. It was, like awaken the communities to their own potential, to their own dignity and their autonomy and self-reliance, and awaken the other organizations to, hey, we need to collaborate into a new level. If we really want to achieve this, like we need to be great thinkers and put all this experience together so we can, give quantum leaps and really tackle and the end of hunger by 2030. And that starts by a recognition that, as I was saying also at the beginning, that it's a holistic approach. It's not about just food production. It's not about just money. It's not about, making sure that some food is given from food banks to the people, right? But it's about how do we understand that every human being, we have the right to live a healthy, fulfilling, with dignity life. So this is very important in this process, because women and girls are who the most are left behind to given that opportunity, to have that opportunity to participate in the communities, and especially, where hunger concentrated, it's in rural areas, marginated, like they don't have access. And women are the ones who and girls who doesn't have the opportunity to go to school, because still there's a whole system that is the patriarchal system that has the power in place. So the decisions of what is going to happen in that community are still being held in place by men and their view and their perspective. And so why start with women? Because we need to put, their concerns, their needs on the table, so that way, we can have a more balanced decision making and a share of that power, so that, especially in the rural areas, the little money that there is available doesn't go just to infrastructure. Men naturally usually makes the infrastructure their priority, rather than, like women always do. Nutrition, education, health, working in all that type of projects that are super key for development and for, again, participating in everything that happens in communities. So that's why it's very important that we start with women, making sure they have access to those spaces, getting the capacities and the abilities and unleash their leadership, so they can really understand also that it's their right to participate and to have the same type of life that as a man in their communities.
I, of course, love that. But I want to also point out that you never said to lessen men's participation in the entire thing. It's more to raise women up in environments where women have not been allowed to participate in governance, participate in their own care, become self-reliant, become a part of the decision-making, just what you said. So it's about, to me, what I heard you say is raising the women's awareness of their abilities, which would then naturally allow them to come forward to collaborate with everybody else in making their homes better places. And by their home, I mean their entire village, their entire community is their home. Is that?
Yes. And in that aspect, one thing that always, or people assume is like, oh, well, now it's men are against women. And no, and this is about, also men having the realization that, oh, we need women, and this is something that will benefit all of us, and then change the power structures to make that available. Because it's not as simple as, many people think that, oh yeah, you empower women and, the end of hunger or anything will be done. And it's the first step, of course, but we need to go beyond and really go to transform the power structures within first the family, from the inside to the outside, so that, their voice are heard inside the family, then inside the community, and then inside the government. Because, in this process, the representation of women in the political aspects where they can really tackle some issues, it's denied, because the structures are still keeping in place where, they are simulations of, yes, we're going to support women, in participating in political parties. But at the end, it becomes like, yeah, they're just put their name, but they don't really give, the same budget allocation for the women to get the representation or the support that a man gets, when they're doing campaigns. So in all of that, the Hunger Project approach, it's a very deep level, because it's not about just disempowerment. It's about autonomy, and it's about awakening, and it's about, that's why I like saying it's about, unleashing their human spirit, because we all are equal. We all deserve the same rights, and we don't have the structure to do that. As we can see, the world has turned out so unequal. And here, for instance, in Latin America is the most unequal region. And so it's not about also that, hunger exists because we don't have food. We do have food. The food is produced, but it's somehow in that, dynamics on the system that this inequality creates that inaccessible. And so it's not just looking at one single point, but really to look at the whole system in order to really end hunger.
I got it. And I love it all. And the inequality and all that. Everybody, I had a guy, just so I want the guys for listening to know, this is not man bashing at all. And sometimes I think guys feel that, but I had a relationship man, Andre was on my show a little bit ago talking about the culture and how the culture gets it wrong with men and women. And it's not about anybody being less equal than other, less than another. We're the same. We are just different. And if we brought our differences together and worked through things like ending poverty, like ending hunger, like ending women's suffering and all the places that we're having problems, together we can bring those together, not one more than the other, but women have to have a seat at the table to make that happen, just because we all have different perspectives. Kind of the same thing as ethnicities. Everybody has a different perspective. So bringing those all together will make things so much easier in the long run. In the short run, it's harder because you have to kind of figure out each other and work together. But in the long run, we have a sustainable answer to what's been going on. I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah.
So
Lisa, if I could add to that,
absolutely, Suzanne.
Something I've been thinking of because we've long said the patriarchal system, is what needs to be transformed, and it's inside this patriarchal system where there's, the women are not heard, et cetera, et cetera. But it isn't like shifting to a matriarchal system. I mean, it's the binary way of thinking that has things stuck in place as well, because we say, well, what's the alternative? What's the alternative to the current power structure? Right? And that in itself is also just a binary way of thinking. And what we're really saying is, in the existing system, it's a system of power over people. And what we're talking about is a power with.
Got it.
Power with. And you said that, Felicia, when you're talking about you just said that, which is what reminded me about being with each other and including the perspective of each other and the richness that comes from that, the solutions, the velocity, the alignment, all of those sorts of things. It's a different context than who's going to knock who out of power. Now women are going to be empowered, men aren't. That's conversation is inside the same non-working paradigm.
Yes. Ooh, that was huge, Suzanne. Conversations within the same non-working paradigm. I hope you guys heard that. It's a completely different way to think about it as equals. Different, yes. Equal, each have a different perspective, and all perspectives need to come to the table. I love it so much. Tell me about some success stories with the Hunger Project, projects you started and gotten communities into self-reliance.
So I'll start. Lorena, you probably have, I know you have stories too. I'll start. In Africa, for example, our programmatic work is labeled the Epicenter Strategy. So we have a name for our work in each of the areas we work. And I should start by saying it shows up differently in each part of the world. While our methodology is the same, start with women, mobilize everyone, create a shared vision, good relationships with local government, those pillars, as we say, are present everywhere. But it shows up differently in each area we work to adjust for what's actually happening on the ground there. So in Africa, through the Epicenter Strategy, it's one where there isn't a lot of community infrastructure in Africa.
Which countries in Africa, Suzanne?
We're in, 9 countries in Africa. Let's see if I can name them all. Malawi, Zambia, Senegal, Benin, Mozambique, Burkina Faso, Uganda, Ghana.
Wow. I never even heard of some of those countries. So amazing. I used to think of Africa as like a country itself. And then I woke up one day and said, oh my gosh, Africa's a continent. Look at that thing. There's a ton of stuff going on there. So that's why I had you name the countries, because I think too many people think of it as a conglomerate of one thing. Good.
Yeah, I'm glad you did, because it's true. It's a very common view, and it is so, let's face it, it's so far over there, right? And we don't get a lot of news really from there either, unless you're watching international news. But the Epicenter Strategy uses the core of our methodology, the vision, commitment, and action workshop, to bring people together in a community to create this vision for their communities. And to start with, Felicia, that we really want the group that's creating the vision to be half women, half men.
Okay.
And as you can imagine, that sometimes takes, months, or sometimes it can take a year or more to actually have the community members understand why women and men need to be equally represented when they create the vision. So they create the vision, then natural leadership kind of pops up in the group. And then the Hunger Project staff helps nurture and coach and have that natural leadership, women and men, to take on projects in their communities to lead towards that sustainable vision. And so, long story short, there are over 100 Epicenter communities, which roughly covers 5,000 to 15,000 people per Epicenter. So over 100 of those epicenters have now declared their own self-reliance. And what that means is after a period of 5 years, 8 years, some have taken 10 years in this long journey, they now have their statistics of hunger are down, they have sanitation, water, they have women in leadership, they have over 50 or more criteria of what it means to be able to declare self-reliance. And at that point, they're able to say, Hunger Project, thank you for being our partners all these years, and we're ready. Please go work with someone else. We're ready to stand on our own. So there are a number of those success stories.
The list of things that are used to say we're self-reliant is made up by the people in the community or by the Hunger Project, or who decides what makes you self-reliant?
You know, it was a partnership, I don't know, maybe a decade and a half ago, that started with our African country directors. And our African country directors were always Africans from their particular country. So in Malawi, it was a Malawian. In Ghana, it was a Ghanaian. They came together to say, really, some of the measures are similar in all of the areas. Of course, hunger can be counted similarly. Health can be counted similarly, but there are also some idiosyncratic or some special measures in these communities. So it was a partnership between our Africa country directors and staff there and the community members to really co-create in our vision. What does our vision look like when we're self-reliant? And what are the things that we know that means? So it's a nice partnership of back and forth. And sometimes in a community, if you've lived there for, obviously your whole life, and then perhaps several generations, you may not immediately put in your vision that women are equal. Mm-hmm. Right? If you've never seen it before, don't even know that it's possible.
Right.
So the mindset shift work and the visioning work in the beginning is really crucial. And then those people can see, well, then how would we want to measure that, right? Like how do we know when we're there? So it's a co-creation.
Got it. So do you have a number of epicenters? How many epicenters you said 100 epicenters have deemed themselves self-reliant, and each one of those is 5,000 to 15,000 people?
Right. I can get the actual numbers for you. Actually, today, I believe it's
51 are self-reliant.
51.
Okay.
Yeah, 51 are self-reliant and working in over 100.
Okay.
In Africa, on the African continent.
Once that community deems itself self-reliant, they say, bye-bye, you guys walk away.
Yeah, we do stay connected with them for a few years afterwards, because remember, we're still measuring with the rest of with all those other organizations that we're members with in the movement for community-led development. So for the next couple of years, we'll go back, once or twice and just say, how are you doing now?
Mm-hmm.
How are you doing now on all these measures? Have they improved? And one of the things, Felicia, that we do during that time that we're in partnership with people in the epicenters is they start doing their own measuring.
Okay.
So they know how to collect the statistics. So it's community-led development, right? So we can't just leave and say, okay, we certainly don't leave and say, you made all of our check marks. No, it's they met all of their goals, and they know how to keep going. They know how to set agendas. They know how to work together. They know how to engage their local government. They know how to, in some cases, write grants from their government.
Okay.
They have all these capacities and skills, and we check in with them for a period of time also, so we can continue to tell the world, yep, they're still sustainable. Yep, they're still sustainable. The definition of sustainability is it goes on after we're gone.
Yes. Got it. And the majority of, or all of your epicenters are run by the people in that community. We're not talking about we have people from the United States or some other country in there helping them to, correct? It's like,
right. Absolutely. Absolutely. We have no expats, never have. It's always, as I said, if it's in Malawi, it's a Malawian, even on our staff.
Okay.
And sometimes, the people from the main cities in Malawi, for example, can be easily disconnected from even the language sometimes in the communities. So it's crucial and important that the community leadership is developed. And this makes for much more sustainable development as well. Felicia, this might be a good time to mention what happened during COVID-19, because with so many international development organizations having expats, having people from the US, from Britain, from all over the place, as their country directors and staff members in countries around the world, they had to pull them out and send them home in quarantine, right? Which left a lot of organizations without their leadership.
Right.
And yet the Hunger Project and organizations that believe in this community-led approach and staff their organizations that way, our people didn't have to go home. They were already home. And the communities themselves, we had over 500,000 trained community leaders in the countries where we work who were able to mobilize their own communities for the COVID, for what happened to happen at COVID, and organize all sorts. I mean, that's just a case study in itself, the COVID response.
That's thank you for bringing that up, because I wouldn't have even thought about that, of how that affected the leadership in a community. If the leadership is not from that community, that's huge. If everybody's got to pull out, kind of is going to be a big setback. Interesting.
Well, and the outcomes, Felicia, the outcomes are just extraordinary. I mean, think of we've got some of the numbers are that our community leaders jumping into action over the last 9 months. They've sewn and distributed almost 240,000 face masks. So these are people in rural communities who may have been working on their sewing technique to make crafts to sell, to generate income. Now they turn that same skill into these 240,000, almost 240,000 face masks. And there's been over 6,000 hand washing stations made by community members, organized by community leaders. And they've distributed over 200,000 kilograms of soap. So when things are provided by outside resources, is it hoarded? Is it competed for? Is it sold on the black market? Or is it received and distributed equitably, fairly, and in a calm and peaceful manner? These are the differences that our community-led leadership has made even in the COVID situation. It's been crucial.
That's huge. That's huge. So that's Africa. Latin America, Lorena, talk to me about that. Tell us.
Great. No, of course. And just by hearing what Suzanne just reminded us, because it's very, it's very important, and in order to share successes, to understand that this process is made by the people. Like one of the challenges in really ending hunger, and I always said really, because people, they say they're doing it, but I think it's breaking the dependency, from any aid or support or government to their autonomy. And I love this, because COVID proved the point. If the leadership has to go and be out because there wasn't the conditions, then there's no longer that dependency. So still, what needs to happen happens, and that's to me key in this aspect, because as I said, it's not only about empowerment, but in that pathway to autonomy and self-reliance, it's exactly that. It's taking and recognizing it's with us, and it's about us, and it's us making it happen. So in that regard, for instance, here in Mexico, we work with rural indigenous communities, which are very marginalized, and Mexico is a very large country, and so we work in different states where these rural areas are in the high mountains and very remote areas, and with scarce house, all over, and scattered, houses all over. So there's no possibility for them to really, succeed. And so for government, programs, or for even NGOs, these are the people, or these are the groups of people that are never considered. They're invisible. So with the Hunger Project, we reach them and really understand that also ending hunger is about the conditions. This inequality that I was mentioning before, it's about recognizing that, what surrounds to the people or the communities are the context for them to succeed or not. So by that, what I mean is these communities don't have access to water, sanitation, roads, or anything. So how does in the approach, how does this community survive? So, like if they are so forgotten. So part of what the Hunger Project has done and has created is in this first thing is to recognize those conditions and then prioritize these communities and the people growing inside them it's, their vision is a survival one. Okay. What I'm going to eat tomorrow and what my family is going to eat tomorrow. So all this process in creating a long-term vision is about first understanding that they can do it. And so success cases, there are communities where, they didn't have access to drinkable water because of where they are located geographically. They had to walk 2 to 3 hours to get just 1 gallon of water for the whole family and for the whole day. And that is for cooking, so it wasn't enough. And so one of the things that they recognized was that water was key in their community. And so we partner with an organization that, we study and check with organizations, have solutions that could actually work there, because it's not just, having the solution, but thinking in the long term, how they're going to keep that solution working, and the maintenance and, everything, and who's going to do it. And so we found this a great organization to partner with, and because they have created that solution. And so we introduced that solution to the communities, and they agree, they got trained, and they also created the plan of what families would start, or how, these rain harvest water systems, how are they going to be working for the community? As Suzanne was saying, instead of just putting one and everybody fighting for that, they decided by themselves where and how often, these places, these systems were going to be put in place. And, it's amazing, because by having them chose, act, and install and get training how to install and maintain the systems, they have now, the children had access to drinkable water. And, this is key for, particularly for the first 5 years of their life. So now they also have water to create new crops. And so it's something that previous to this work, it was impossible for them. They, right. Their mindset, that's something that it wasn't possible. And the other thing is that they were waiting that someday magically, the government would bring that solution to them. And this was something that they made happen. And the other thing, for instance, is that in those rural areas, and this case struck me, because in those rural areas, they don't have electricity. Some still don't have electricity. But here's a government program that it goes to address exactly to those communities who doesn't have electricity, right? Mm-hmm. But this is the crazy thing, that, for instance, once they have assigned the funds and everything, the bureaucracy of making that project happen required that the people of the community, have the how you call that in English, the title of the land for them to prove. And so the government could put, it was, because it's so remote, it was for solar panels. Perfect. Oh yeah, great match. Except that, what title? These are land for people that had been inherited. There's no land. And so the government said, okay, well, we're going to go in the traditional way, and we're going to give you, the electricity poles. But for your community to have electricity, you will be needing 51 that, they are so heavy. And we're going to put it where the road gets, and it's your community who are going to transport them towards your community. So the amount of work and no pay, that they didn't receive, it was insane. But the community saw the larger vision, organized, and make sure that, research that the program had some money for them. And so they fought for getting that money and to have electricity. So boom, something that couldn't have happened, and people just would have resigned, like, well, someday somebody will put it. They made it happen. They organized, and it wasn't the best way, but they did it. And so now, they have another, area of their vision accomplished. And I can go on, with many areas, but the most important is that they don't stop. They start with what they have in their community, and then find and partner with other organizations that, we also in the Hunger Project help them in the, link them in getting in touch and find their own solutions. But they are the ones who are deciding, because, sometimes what other organizations or the government think is the solution, it doesn't work at all.
Right. So that was amazing to me, because I'm thinking about having to walk 2 or 3 hours to get water. And that's about one of the few things you can get done in the day. And now you've got water and you don't have to walk 2 or 3 hours. Your mind is free to think of so many other things that you can do. So it just frees up 2 or 3 hours of your day to move on to something else. Like, how do we solve this electricity problem? And I mean, it didn't just happen. So working with the Hunger Project made the community empowered to make those decisions for themselves, to be able to accomplish all of these things. So self-reliance. Yeah, absolutely, Suzanne.
Imagine just like basking in this sense of this group basking in their sense of accomplishment.
Yes.
After a process like that. And it's so amazing because when a group accomplishes something like that, it builds their capacity.
Yep.
And their confidence.
Yes.
And their competence.
Yes.
And all those things. Like, we can do this. What are we going to take on next? What about that health clinic?
Yeah.
What about that school for our kids?
Yes.
Right? People get unstoppable. And that's when the Hunger Project talks about unleashing the human spirit. It's like, when humans can get unleashed, watch out. Really, we can do stuff together that we really is impossible by ourselves.
Yep. And the generational, watch your children watching you do this thing just opens them up completely to, oh my gosh, mom and dad did this, or mom did that, or dad did that. And here's the next 15 things that are going to happen. And generationally, that just passes right down, just like generational poverty can pass right down. Generational unleashed, the spirit unleashed can pass from generation to generation too. Those are,
and it's Felicia, that's the sustainability, right? It is that they all now know how to sustain a water well. And yes, it's that. More importantly, it's that human capacity and the mindset that we're winners.
Yes.
We get stuff done.
Yes.
We don't sit around and whine or be just, complacent with how it's always been. We step up, we step in, we have voice, we own our lives, and that's sustainable.
Yes. So the Hunger Project is the first organization I worked with who called my donation an investment. And I hope you can see how that air quote donation is an investment. The things that it changes is amazing. That we talk about, rising tides, raise all boats, or however it goes. But I mean, we're not talking about just giving people food. We're talking about empowering people, having them change their own lives after becoming empowered. It's an amazing thing. Check out the Hunger Project. Check out Money with Mission. Give your money a mission. This is an amazing organization. Please look at them. I don't even know what else to say. Thank you guys so much for being with me today. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Felicia.
Thank you so much, Felicia.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed the interview and are inspired to give your money a mission. Until next time, send your investment dollars into the world to bring you a financial return and improve the lives of others.
You've been listening to Money with Mission. There are projects happening right now where you can make a great return while positively impacting the lives of others. To learn more about today's guests or to download 7 steps to building resilient wealth for women, visit www.moneywithmission.com.